This is only the beginning. There is still more to teach them. And just like that, the Watchers began to wander the world, each revealing secrets that were never meant for mortal hands. Azazel was the first. He moved among the blacksmiths and said, "Why shape the plow alone when you can shape power?" He showed them how to draw metal from the heart of the earth, how to strike iron. "Make it sharp," Azazel whispered, guiding the hammer of a trembling apprentice. "A man with a sword fears no god." In time, the forges glowed brighter than the sun. Men learned to make shields, spears, and armor, and they no longer tilled the soil, they prepared for war. But Azazel's teachings did not end there. To the women, he brought beauty's deception. He ground the dust of gems into powder, showing them how to color their eyes and adorn their bodies. "Let your face shine brighter than the dawn," he said, "and no man will resist your gaze." What began as wonder became vanity. Gold gleamed on their necks, and mirrors filled with pride. Desire, once innocent, turned to hunger. From the mountains, Arachiel descended and taught the knowledge of the earth, how roots could heal, poison, or bind the mind in dreams. "Every plant hides two faces," he said. "One to give life, one to take it." Arachiel lifted his eyes to the night and traced patterns in the stars. "These are not lights," he told the shepherds. "They are signs, messages written by the gods. Learn them, and you will read the future." Kokabel taught the mapping of constellations. Shamsiel revealed the course of the sun. Batariel whispered spells, and Tamiel showed men how to call spirits from the wind. What had once been forbidden became art. The world grew wise but sick at the same time. Villages turned to cities, cities turned to kingdoms, and kingdoms to battlefields. The Nephilim led armies of men who bore the weapons Azazel had given them. The ground was never dry, because it drank the blood of both hunter and king. Semjaza stood on a hill overlooking the carnage. Smoke rose from the plains below. His heart, once filled with awe, now felt heavy. "This was not the world we dreamed of," he said. "We wanted to share the light, not drown it in blood." Azazel beside him smiled faintly. "You speak of light as if it were holy," he said. "Knowledge is neither holy nor cursed. It is only power, and power is never still." Semjaza turned to him. "And when that power consumes everything, what will remain?" Azazel's eyes gleamed like iron in the fire. "Then the world will be reborn. It must first burn to see what survives." But even Azazel began to sense what was coming. The earth began to shudder as if it could no longer bear the weight of sin. "The ground groans," said Arachiel. "It remembers the footsteps of angels and the blood of their sons." Semjaza lifted his face to the heavens. "Do you still see us?" he whispered. "Do you still remember who we were?" But the sky gave no answer. Above the burning world, the archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel stood before the throne, watching the chaos below. Smoke rose from the valleys, and the cries of men echoed through the clouds. The earth, once green and alive, was drowning in its own blood. Michael was the first to speak. "Lord," he said, "the world you made cries out in pain. The rivers run red, and the hearts of men have turned to stone." Gabriel stepped forward. "The Watchers have defied your command," he said. "They walk among flesh and call it love. Their sons devour the living. If this continues, there will be nothing left to save." Raphael lowered his gaze. "The ground groans beneath their weight," he said softly. "Even the wind carries their corruption. Every breath of the earth has become a curse." Uriel raised his hand toward the horizon. "If we remain silent, their sin will spread beyond the earth," he warned. "Even heaven will not stay untouched." The four archangels lowered their heads. They had watched the Watchers twist the gift of creation, and their patience was gone. Yet even as they spoke, There was fear in their hearts for what God's wrath might bring. The three who arrived last seized me by the hand, lifting me away from the earthly generations and elevating me to a high and lofty place. They showed me a towering structure that loomed above the earth, while all the surrounding hills appeared small in comparison. One of the beings said to me, "Stay here and watch everything that happens to these elephants, camels, and asses, as well as the stars and the oxen. Observe all that befalls them." In the vision, I saw one of the first four beings who had come forth. He seized the original star that had fallen from heaven, binding it hand and foot before casting it into a narrow, deep, and dreadful abyss. Then another being drew a sword and handed it to the elephants, camels, and asses. Armed with this weapon, they began to strike each other, causing the earth to quake with the intensity of their conflict. As I watched, one of the four beings who had descended from heaven began to hurl stones at these creatures. He gathered all the great stars whose organs resembled those of horses, bound them hand and foot, and cast them into the same abyss of the earth, leaving them confined and helpless. One of the four beings approached the white bull and revealed a profound secret to him, causing no fear. The bull, transformed into a man, constructed a magnificent vessel for himself and dwelled within it. Alongside him, three other bulls took refuge in the vessel, their presence shielded within. Once more, I directed my gaze toward the heavens and beheld a towering roof, adorned with 7 torrents of water. These torrents poured forth an abundance of water into a vast enclosure. I looked again, and fountains erupted on the floor of that great enclosure, causing the water to rise and swell. The enclosure gradually filled with water until it was entirely submerged. As the water deepened, darkness and mist thickened. The water crested above the enclosure's height and began to overflow, covering the earth beneath. All the cattle within the enclosure were gathered together, and I watched as they sank, consumed by the rising waters and perished within their depths. The vessel, however, remained afloat, while all the oxen, elephants, camels, and asses sank beneath the water, disappearing from sight and meeting their doom. In the vision, I saw the torrents recede from the towering roof, revealing the earth's surface. Chasms were filled, and new abysses opened up. The waters drained into these new chasms, making the earth visible once again. The vessel settled on solid ground as darkness receded and light emerged. The white bull, now a man, emerged from the vessel along with the 3 bulls who had accompanied him. One was white like him, another was blood red, and the last was black. The white bull departed from them. The bulls began to create beasts of the field and birds, leading to the emergence of diverse species: lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, squirrels, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens. Among these, a new white bull was born. Conflict arose among these creatures, but the newly born white bull fathered a wild ass and another white bull. The wild asses multiplied from this lineage. The bull, born from the first white bull, sired a black wild boar and a white sheep. The wild boar produced many offspring, while the sheep gave birth to 12 lambs. As the 12 lambs grew, one was given to the wild asses, who then passed it to the wolves. This sheep matured among the wolves. The lord of the sheep gathered the 11 remaining lambs and brought them to live and graze among the wolves. The flocks multiplied, growing numerous. The wolves, terrified of the increasing sheep, oppressed them fiercely, destroying their young and casting them into a river of great waters. The sheep cried out in anguish over their lost young and pleaded with their lord. One sheep, having escaped the wolves, fled to the wild asses. I witnessed the sheep's lament and their fervent pleas to their lord, who descended from his exalted dwelling in response. He called the sheep that had escaped and instructed it to warn the wolves not to harm the sheep. The sheep, following the Lord's command, went to the wolves accompanied by another sheep. Together they entered the wolves' assembly and admonished them to cease their attacks on the sheep. Despite this, I saw how the wolves continued to oppress the sheep with all their might, causing them to cry out in distress. The Lord came to the sheep, and they began to fight against the wolves. The wolves, in their turn, lamented, but the sheep's cries ceased. I observed as the sheep left the wolves behind, while the wolves, blinded and enraged, pursued them with relentless vigor. The Lord of the sheep led them, his presence radiant and awe-inspiring. All the sheep followed him, their faces illuminated by his glory. The wolves chased the sheep until they reached a vast sea. The sea parted, standing as walls of water on either side, with their Lord guiding them and placing himself between the sheep and the wolves. As the wolves, unable to see the sheep, ventured into the sea, they followed them into the midst of the waters, their pursuit unceasing. As the wolves caught sight of the Lord of the sheep, they turned in terror to flee from his formidable presence. The sea, however, gathered itself and returned to its original state. The waters surged and rose, ultimately engulfing the wolves. I witnessed the dreadful scene as every wolf that had pursued the sheep was drowned and perished in the swelling sea. Yet the sheep escaped from the watery deluge and ventured into a barren wilderness, devoid of water and sustenance. In this desolate land, their eyes were opened to their surroundings. I observed the Lord of the sheep tenderly pasturing them, providing both water and grass, while the leading sheep guided them. The leading sheep ascended to the peak of a towering rock, and the Lord of the sheep sent it back to the flock. I saw the Lord of the sheep standing before them, his appearance majestic, awe-inspiring, and fearsome. The sight of him instilled profound fear in the sheep. They trembled and quaked in his presence, crying out to the leading sheep, "We cannot endure the sight of our Lord, nor stand before him." The leading sheep climbed again to the top of the rock, but the sheep began to lose their way and wander from the path it had shown them, though the sheep remained unaware of their deviation. The Lord of the sheep grew exceedingly wrathful with them. The leading sheep, sensing this, descended from the rock and found the majority of the sheep blinded and strayed. Upon encountering the straying flock, they trembled in fear at its presence and longed to return to their safe pastures. The leading sheep gathered other sheep and went to those who had wandered. It began to cull the wayward sheep, instilling fear in them, and thereby leading the strays back to their fold. In the vision, I saw the leading sheep transform into a man and construct a grand house for the Lord of the sheep, placing all the sheep within it. I saw how the sheep met with the leading sheep that had become a man, who then fell asleep. The grand sheep perished, and smaller ones rose in their stead, leading the flock to a new pasture and a flowing stream of water. The leader, now a man, withdrew from the sheep and fell asleep, causing great mourning among the flock. They cried out desperately for their lost leader. Eventually, the sheep ceased their cries and crossed the stream. New leaders emerged, 2 sheep taking charge where the old ones had fallen asleep. I witnessed the sheep arrive in a beautiful, lush land. The sheep thrived and were satisfied in this pleasant place where the house stood among them. At times their vision was clear, and other times it was obscured, until a new sheep arose to lead them, restoring their sight. As the sheep faced challenges from dogs, foxes, and wild boars, the Lord of the sheep raised a ram from their midst to lead them. The ram fought fiercely against the predators, ultimately destroying them all. However, the ram that had once been glorious grew corrupt and began to assault and trample the sheep, misusing its power. The Lord of the sheep appointed another lamb, transforming it into a ram to replace the fallen leader. This new ram became the prince and leader of the sheep. But during these events, the sheep continued to suffer from oppression by the dogs. The first ram pursued the second, but the second ram fled in fear. Eventually, the dogs overpowered and brought down the first ram. The second ram then took charge, leading the sheep. The flock multiplied and grew, while the predators fled in fear before the ram's might. The ram defeated the wild beasts, which no longer had power over the sheep. The ram fathered many sheep before falling asleep. A young sheep then succeeded him as ram and became the new leader. The house grew large and expansive, built for the sheep, and a towering structure was erected for the Lord of the sheep. This house, though low, was overshadowed by the grand tower where the Lord resided, and the sheep provided a full table before him. Yet I saw that once again the sheep strayed and forsook their house. The Lord of the sheep sent emissaries from among them, but these were slain by the sheep. One emissary survived and cried out over the flock, but the Lord saved it and brought it to me to dwell there. Many other sheep were sent to lament and testify to the flock, but when they abandoned the Lord's house and tower, they fell away completely. Their eyes were blinded, and the Lord wrought great slaughter among them until they invited their own ruin. He delivered them into the hands of lions, tigers, wolves, hyenas, foxes, and all wild beasts, who tore the sheep to pieces. The Lord abandoned the house and tower, leaving the sheep at the mercy of the wild beasts. They were ravaged and devoured. In my distress I cried out with all my strength, pleading with the Lord of the sheep to intervene as the wild beasts continued to devour his flock. Yet the Lord of the sheep remained unmoved, even as he watched the devastation unfold before his eyes. He rejoiced in their being devoured, swallowed, and plundered, leaving them at the mercy of the ravenous beasts. Then he summoned 70 shepherds and handed the sheep over to them, commanding them, "Each of you shall now tend to the sheep and do everything I instruct you. I will give you a specific number of sheep, and you are to destroy only those I command you to." He entrusted the sheep to their care. But he also called upon another and said, "Observe everything the shepherds do to the sheep. Watch closely, for they will destroy more than I have ordered. Record every excess and all the destruction they commit. Note how many perish by my decree, and how many fall by their reckless will. Document the wrongdoings of each shepherd." And to this observer he added, "Do not reveal this to the shepherds, neither warn them nor speak to them of their misdeeds. Simply write down every sheep they destroy and present the full account to me." In time, the shepherds began to tend the sheep, but they slaughtered far more than they were instructed. They handed the sheep over to the lions and other wild beasts. The lions and tigers tore through the sheep, devouring them in great numbers. Even the wild boars feasted on them. And the shepherds set fire to the tower and brought the house of the sheep crashing down. Sorrow weighed heavily upon me as I gazed upon the ruins of the tower. For the house of the sheep lay in rubble, and I could no longer tell if any of the sheep had managed to return to it. The shepherds and their accomplices continued to surrender the sheep to the wild beasts, each receiving a fixed number. Meanwhile, the observer faithfully recorded in his book how many sheep each shepherd destroyed, and many more perished than was decreed. I could not contain my grief, and I wept bitterly for the slaughtered sheep. In my vision I saw the one who kept the record bringing the book before the Lord of the sheep. Every name, every act of destruction was written down, and the book was laid before him. The Lord read it, sealed it, and set it aside. I continued to watch as the shepherds pastured for 12 more hours. In that time, 3 sheep turned back and entered the ruins, rebuilding what had been lost. They began to restore the tower, which was then called the High Tower. They also set a table before it, but the bread they placed upon it was defiled, impure. Yet throughout all this, the eyes of the sheep remained blinded, and so too were the eyes of their shepherds. The sheep were delivered into the hands of their shepherds, only to be trampled and devoured. The Lord of the sheep, however, remained unmoved, even as his flock was scattered across the fields and mingled with the wild beasts. The shepherds made no effort to save them. Once again, the observer who had written down all these things took the book and brought it before the Lord of the sheep. He pleaded earnestly on behalf of the sheep and testified against the shepherds, laying bare their many transgressions. The Lord accepted the book and placed it beside him before the observer departed. I saw that 35 more shepherds were appointed to pasture the sheep, each fulfilling their term. As before, others took over when their time was up, continuing the cycle. Then I saw the sky darken as flocks of birds descended upon the sheep, eagles, vultures, kites, and ravens. But it was the eagles who led the assault. They began to feast on the sheep, tearing at their flesh and gouging out their eyes. The sheep cried out in agony as their bodies were devoured, and I, in my sleep, wept and mourned for the shepherds who had been entrusted with their care. The dogs, eagles, and kites continued their feast, leaving no trace of flesh, skin, or sinew. Only the bare bones of the sheep remained, and even those bones crumbled to the earth as the sheep dwindled in number. I watched as 23 more shepherds took up their duties, each fulfilling their period, spanning 58 more times. But amidst this horror, new lambs were born to the white sheep. Their eyes opened, and they began to cry out to the rest of the flock. Though the lambs called to their elders, the older sheep were deaf to their pleas, their ears blind to the truth. Then I saw the ravens swoop down upon the lambs. One lamb was seized, dashed to the ground, and devoured. Yet despite this, horns began to grow upon the lambs, though the ravens tried to tear them down. In time, one sheep sprouted a great horn, and its eyes were opened fully. This sheep turned and gazed upon the others, crying out to them. The rams heard the call, and they all rushed toward the one with the great horn. Even after all of this, the eagles, vultures, ravens, and kites continued their merciless attack, swooping down upon the sheep and tearing into them, devouring their flesh. And though the sheep suffered, they remained silent, while the rams cried out in sorrow and anguish. The ravens, desperate to overpower the ram, fought fiercely against it, seeking to break its mighty horn, yet they had no strength to defeat it. I watched as the shepherds, along with the eagles, vultures, and kites, called upon the ravens to shatter that ram's horn. They joined forces in a violent struggle, but the ram fought back with great desperation, crying out for deliverance. And then, before my eyes, the man who recorded the names of the shepherds descended from the presence of the Lord of the sheep. He came to the aid of the ram, revealing to it all that had been written. His arrival was the ram's salvation. At last, the Lord of the sheep appeared, his wrath burning like an unquenchable fire. Upon seeing him, all who had gathered, shepherds, beasts, and birds alike, fled in terror, scrambling to escape his gaze. They were cast into his shadow, consumed by fear. The eagles, vultures, ravens, and kites were all gathered together, and the sheep of the fields came as well, uniting with the beasts and birds in their efforts to break the ram's horn. But I saw the man who had written the book open it, presenting the record of the 12 last shepherds. They had wrought greater destruction than any before them. The Lord of the sheep saw this and was filled with fury. The Lord took his staff of wrath in hand, and with a mighty blow he struck the earth. The ground split open, and all the beasts and birds of the heavens that had tormented the sheep were swallowed by the earth, which closed upon them, sealing their doom. Then I saw that a great sword was given to the sheep. With this weapon they rose against the beasts of the field, slaying them in vengeance. The beasts and birds fled from the sheep, but none could escape their wrath. In the land of peace, a great throne was erected, and the Lord of the sheep seated himself upon it. The man who had written the book brought out the sealed records and opened them before the Lord. The Lord called forth 7 men, clothed in white, and commanded them to bring before him the stars, whose hidden sins were like the impurities of horses. These stars were brought before him, trembling in judgment. Then the Lord turned to the man who had been recording all the events and said, "Take those 70 shepherds, those to whom I entrusted the sheep, and who, acting out of their own will, slaughtered far more than I commanded. And behold, I saw that they were all bound, and they stood before the Lord, trembling in their guilt. Judgment was passed first upon the stars. They were found guilty, condemned, and cast into a blazing abyss filled with unrelenting flames, burning pillars of fire. The 70 shepherds faced their judgment next, and they too were found guilty. They were hurled into the same fiery abyss, their fate sealed. As I continued to watch, the earth opened yet again, revealing another abyss of fire in its depths. The blinded sheep were brought before it, and they too were judged. All were found guilty, and one by one they were cast into the flames, where they burned until nothing remained but ashes. This abyss lay to the right of the house of the sheep. I watched in horror as the sheep burned, their very bones consumed by the fire. And then I saw the house of old, the house that had sheltered the sheep, being folded up. Its pillars, beams, and ornaments were all taken down and carried away, placed in a distant land to the south. But then a new house appeared, greater and more magnificent than the first. It was set up in the place of the old, its pillars stronger, its decorations grander. All the sheep that remained were gathered into this new house. As I looked upon the scene, I saw all the beasts of the earth and birds of the sky bowing in submission to the sheep. They made supplications and obeyed the sheep in all things. The Lord of the sheep rejoiced greatly, for all the sheep had returned to his house. In that moment, the 3 men clothed in white, who had once taken me by the hand, appeared again. They, along with the ram, lifted me up and placed me in the midst of the sheep, just before judgment was to commence. The sheep were now clothed in pure white wool, abundant and clean. All those who had been destroyed or scattered were gathered in the new house, and the Lord rejoiced with overwhelming joy at their return, for they were now good and faithful. I watched as the sword, once given to the sheep, was taken back into the house, and it was sealed before the presence of the Lord. All the sheep were invited into the house, though it could not contain them all, for they were so numerous. Suddenly, all their eyes were opened, and they beheld the goodness that surrounded them. Not one among them was blind, for all could see clearly. I saw that the house was vast and spacious, filled to the brim with the sheep. Then from among them a white bull was born with large horns. All the beasts of the field and birds of the sky feared him and sought his favor, making petitions to him without ceasing. I watched as the generations of the sheep were transformed, one after the other, until they all became white bulls. Among them, the first one became a lamb, but this lamb grew into a mighty beast with great black horns upon its head. The Lord of the sheep rejoiced over this lamb and all the oxen. In the midst of them, I fell into a deep sleep, and when I awoke, I had seen everything. This is the vision that came to me in my sleep. When I awoke, I blessed the Lord of righteousness and glorified his name. But I could not stop weeping. Tears flowed without end as the weight of all I had seen overwhelmed me. I wept because I knew that everything would come to pass, and all the deeds of men, each in their time, had been revealed to me. That night, I remembered my first dream, and the vision filled me with sorrow and unrest. I wept for what I had witnessed, for the fate of all was laid bare before me. In that time the angels will descend into hidden places, gathering those who have led humanity into sin. And on that day, the Most High will rise to execute his great judgment upon the sinners. Over all the righteous and the holy, he will appoint guardians from among his angels to protect them like the apple of his eye, keeping them safe until all wickedness is wiped away. Though the righteous may sleep long in their graves, they need not fear, for their rest is secure. The children of the earth will witness this. They will see the wise dwell in safety and will finally understand the words of this prophecy. In that day, they will realize that their wealth cannot save them from the consequences of their sins. "Woe to you, sinners," Enoch proclaimed. "On the day of unbearable anguish, you who torment the righteous and burn them with fire will be repaid for your deeds. Woe to you, hardened of heart, who stay awake plotting wickedness. Fear will descend upon you, and none shall be there to rescue you. Woe to you, for the words of your mouth and the works of your hands, born from your godlessness, have earned you a fate worse than the fire itself. You will burn in blazing flames, hotter and more terrible than any earthly fire. And know this, the Most High will inquire of the angels concerning your deeds. He will question the sun, the moon, and the stars about your sins, for you have passed unjust judgments upon the righteous here on earth. Even the clouds, the mist, the dew, and the rain will testify against you. Because of your evil, these will be withheld, and the heavens will remember your wickedness. Go ahead, offer gifts of gold and silver to the rain, hoping it will fall again, or to the dew, so that it will descend upon you. But it will be to no avail. When the frost and snow with their biting cold and the raging storms with all their plagues come upon you, you will not be able to stand against them." Enoch then turned to speak to the children of heaven, the faithful. "Look to the heavens, all of you who are children of the Most High. Behold the works of the Almighty, and let reverence fill your hearts. Do no evil in his presence. If he shuts the windows of heaven, withholding the rain and dew from the earth because of your sins, what will you do then? And if his anger burns against you because of your wickedness, what hope will you have? You cannot plead with him, for you have spoken proud, insolent words against his righteousness, and therefore you will know no peace. Do you not see the sailors upon the seas, how their ships are tossed to and fro by waves, how they tremble in fear as the winds rage around them? They are afraid because their treasures sail with them, and they dread that the sea will swallow them whole. Yet sinners, you who walk upon the earth, do not fear the Most High, though all the seas, their waters, and their movements are his handiwork, bound by his command. He speaks, and the waters dry up, and all that live within them perish, and yet you fear him not. Has he not created the heavens and the earth, and all that is within them? Has he not given wisdom and understanding to every creature that moves upon the earth and within the sea? Even the sailors tremble before the power of the sea. Yet you sinners do not tremble before the Almighty." Enoch's voice grew darker as he foretold the day of reckoning for the wicked. "In the days when he brings a terrible fire upon you, where will you run? Where will you find deliverance? When he sends forth his word against you, will you not tremble in fear? Even the lights of the heavens will tremble in great terror, and the earth will quake with alarm. The angels will move to carry out their commands, and in their fear they will seek to hide themselves from the presence of the great glory. The children of the earth will tremble, and you, sinners, will be cursed forever. You will know no peace. But do not fear, righteous souls. Be full of hope, you who have died in righteousness. Do not grieve because your soul has descended into Sheol in sorrow, or because your body did not prosper in life according to your goodness. Be patient and wait for the day of judgment upon the sinners, for the day of curses and retribution. For when you die, the sinners mock you, saying, 'As we die, so die the righteous.' What gain do they have from their deeds? Look, they die just as we do, in grief and darkness. What more do they have than we? From now on, we are all the same. What will they receive? What will they see forevermore? They too have died, and from this point forward, they will never see the light. But I tell you, sinners, while you feast and drink, robbing and sinning, stripping men of their dignity and wealth, living in comfort and seeing good days, you do not see the truth of the righteous. Their end is peaceful, and no violence touches them until death. And though you say, they perished as though they had never existed, and their spirits descended into Sheol in sorrow, you deceive yourselves, for their rest is in righteousness, and their reward will be revealed in the judgment to come. Now, I swear to you, O righteous ones, by the glory of the great and honored, the mighty one who reigns in supreme dominion, by his immeasurable greatness, I swear to you this truth. I know a profound mystery, a secret hidden in the heavens. I have read from the sacred tablets of the divine, and I have seen the holy books where it is written. It is recorded that all goodness, joy, and glory have been prepared for those who have died in righteousness. I have seen that these treasures are written down for their spirits, and abundant blessings are set aside for you, far greater than what the living could ever know. For your spirits, you who have departed in righteousness, shall live on and rejoice. Your spirits shall not perish, nor will your memory ever fade from before the face of the Great One. You will be remembered through all the generations of the world, so do not fear the scorn of the wicked any longer. But to the sinners I say, woe unto you when you die, especially if you die steeped in the wealth of your sins. For those like you will say, look at these sinners, blessed indeed, for they have seen all their days in prosperity. They have died rich and honored, untouched by tribulation or violence. No judgment fell upon them while they lived. But hear this truth. Their souls will descend into Sheol, and there they will be miserable in their great suffering. Into darkness they will be cast, bound in chains, and their spirits will be engulfed by a burning flame where grievous judgment awaits them. Woe unto you, sinners, for you shall have no peace, now or ever. And do not speak, O righteous ones, in despair, saying, in our troubled days we have labored through endless toil. We have faced every form of evil, been consumed by affliction, and have become few, with our spirits broken. We have been crushed and found no one to help us, not even a word of comfort. We have been tortured and destroyed, losing hope of ever seeing life from one day to the next. We wished to be the head, but instead, we became the tail. Our labor has been in vain, yielding no satisfaction. We have been like food for sinners and the unrighteous, who placed heavy burdens upon us. Those who hated us ruled over us and struck us down. We bowed our necks to them, but they showed no mercy. We longed to escape from their grasp, to find rest, but there was no refuge for us, no place to hide. We cried out in our tribulation to those in power, begging for justice against those who devoured us. But our cries fell on deaf ears. They did not listen to our voices. Instead, they helped those who plundered and destroyed us. They concealed their oppression, never lifting the yoke of those who scattered and murdered us, forgetting the evil they had done and the bloodshed they had caused. Yet I swear to you, O righteous ones, the angels in heaven remember you for good before the glory of the Great One. Your names are written before His majesty. Therefore take heart and find hope, for though you were once shamed by affliction, now you shall shine like the lights of heaven. You will shine, and you will be seen by all, for the very gates of heaven will be opened to you. When you cry out for justice, your cry will be heard, and judgment will come. All your tribulation will be brought upon the heads of the rulers and upon all who aided those who plundered you. Do not cast away your hope, for great joy awaits you, as glorious as the joy of the angels in heaven. You shall not need to hide on the day of great judgment. You will not be counted among sinners, and eternal judgment will be far from you for all the generations of the world. Fear not when you see sinners growing strong, when they prosper in their ways. Do not join them, but stay far from their violence, for in the end you shall be companions with the hosts of heaven. And though sinners say, our sins will never be uncovered or written down, I tell you the truth, every day all your sins are being recorded. Light and darkness, day and night, they see your deeds, and nothing is hidden from them. Do not let godlessness rule your hearts, and do not lie. Do not twist the words of righteousness, nor accuse the words of the Holy One of deceit. Turn away from your idols, for all your lies and wickedness lead only to great sin. I understand another mystery. Sinners will try to twist the words of righteousness. They will pervert the truth in many ways, speaking wicked words, telling lies, and practicing deceit. They will write books full of falsehoods to justify their ways. But know this: when my words are written down truthfully in their languages, without changing or diminishing anything I have spoken, then righteousness shall flourish. The books will be given to the righteous and the wise, and these books will bring joy, uprightness, and wisdom to all who receive them. In those days, the righteous, who have learned the ways of justice and truth from these writings, will be rewarded. And in that time, the Lord himself will summon the righteous to testify before the children of the earth. He will instruct them, for they are the guides of humanity and will receive their reward over the whole earth. For I and my Son will be united with them forever, walking with them on the path of righteousness throughout their lives, and peace will be with you. Rejoice, O children of righteousness, for your time of glory is at hand. Amen.